I am so glad that you are here this morning with us, and I'm so glad that you have joined us and joined me in this class. And I wanted to thank you for coming and for believing in that this will be a benefit to you in experiencing this with me, because I have grown from those who have joined, and I love all those who have joined this class. I just love meeting with you, and I love how I feel I am feeling united with you, especially as we meet in person. I feel like we are all learning and growing on the same course, and it feels super lifting to have you here and to have experienced this class with you. And I just wanted to thank you today. Thank you for being a part of this experience in my journey. Now, I want you to put on your visionary experience capacities and come with me as we explore a couple more stories and illustrations as we go through and explore the scriptures in the Bible. Learning this Hebraic sun at horizon symbol and these principles I have connected with this study will expand your ability to see. This principle is a universal principle of creation. Now, you might be asking yourself, what does that mean? With that wondering about what that means, let's illustrate it in another Genesis story. The story I'm going to share through a couple of these verses and scriptures in the Old and New Testament is the story of Jacob and Esau, and it's a really fun one to read. So I invite you to see this universal story pattern through the historical references in Genesis. If we start in Genesis 25, and I will just begin. So Jacob and Rebekah in verse 20 were with child. And verse 22 says, the children struggled together within her, and she said, if it so be, why am I thus? And she could feel the struggle. She's asking. She went in to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days came to be delivered, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first one came out hairy, and he had a hairy garment, and called his name Esau. And after that, his brother came out and took the hand hold of the heel of Esau, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 old when she bare them. And the boys grew, and Esau came cunning, was a cunning hunter and a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man dwelling. Plain means whole or complete, simple, perfect. And Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah hath loved Jacob. Now, have you ever wondered what that phrase means? Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah had loved Jacob. What does that phrase mean in this universal story of Jacob and Esau? We go on to see in the next chapter, in chapter 26 and 27, Isaac said unto them, wherefore come, and he sent them away. And at one point there was a story that I filled in the gaps about as I came to learn, and I'm going to explain it. But Isaac was in mourning because Abraham had died, and we are told that Esau was out hunting, and Jacob was fixing a mess of pottage, right, for his father Isaac. Well, Jacob was doing this because the eating of this food represented someone was in mourning specifically. And Esau was out hunting and came to Jacob to take up, and and said he wanted to sell his birthright and for this mess of pottage because he was so hungry. Well, Jacob basically traded away his birthright from his parents and got Jacob traded and got his birthright that in that way. So he is appearing that that's how he got his birthright. But in other stories, as I've researched the Jewish histories, I've learned that Esau was actually out hunting in the field, in the woods, and he had a design. He wanted the power of the mighty hunter, Nimrod. This Nimrod was the first that stood in power from the counterfeit garment that he wore. Even though it was passed down from his ancestors to Nimrod, and Nimrod was a part of that counterfeit Babylon world outside of the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob family, not the birthright lineage family. Esau sought that power and glory from that alternative lineage. Nimrod used that counterfeit authority to rule mankind, and he was the first man, even though this birthright, quote unquote birthright garment was passed down in Nimrod's family, he was the first one to stand up and use it as an authority figure to rule mankind. So Esau was out hunting, as the story goes. He was laying in the woods when the mighty hunter Nimrod came, and Esau ambushed Nimrod and killed him, and then stole that garment for himself. He was seeking after a different birthright. When Abraham found out that his grandson, who had the birthright lineage, was already like in line for his birthright, he was devastated over it, and he died. Abraham's son Isaac was in mourning over his dad, and Jacob was preparing his pottage of most likely lentils or something like that. So when Esau came, he was like, I don't care. I'm just hungry. Feed me some food. And he came and did this, and it was a devastating thing to their family. That's a different version of the story than we have in our Bible. But when I learned about this from other histories, I thought it made more sense. And as I tried to piece together this puzzle of what was really being taught. And that can be found in the Jewish websites and such. So where I was looking, I think it's Shabbat.org. Basically, we can see in this story, and this kind of sheds light on it, the different characteristics of Jacob and Esau. And as we read further in Malachi, we can learn more. It says, the burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi. I have loved you, saith the Lord, yet you say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother? Saith the Lord, yet I loved Jacob and hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, and I believe Edom is representing this Esau, because the Edomites were followers of that Nimrod culture. Okay, but whereas Edom say, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they have built, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the borders of wickedness, and the people whom the Lord has called indignation forever. In these verses, what does it mean when we're taught that the Lord loved Jacob and hated Esau? Does it really mean that he hated them? This principle is teaching us, if we notice a seemingly odd instance, that it might seem like a paradox to us, and we may be stopped and try to understand what it's saying. But I know if we keep our minds open and just keep pondering that concept, then we will understand more. So we will understand maybe what happens next if we can keep our mind open and consider that there is something else that maybe we don't know yet. So we're told in the story of Galatians chapter 4, verse 22 specifically, this gives us more insight into what happened in the story over with Jacob and Esau. So Paul is teaching and speaking to the Galatians. He said, their heir, as long as he is a child, differs nothing from a servant. There is no difference between heir and servant. He be Lord of all, but is under tutors and governors until the time appointed of the Father. Even so then, we were children born. We were in bondage under the elements of the world, but fullness of time was come. God sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. Because you are sons, God has sent forth a spirit of his Spirit into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father. Wherefore thou art no more a servant, but a son, and if a son, then an heir of God through Christ. Howbeit then you knew not God, you did service, and to them by which nature are not gods. I said that wrong. Whereby, but now after that you have known God, or rather you are known of God, how you again turn to the weak and beggarly elements, whereon you desire again to be in bondage, and you observe days and months and years and times a year of years. And I am afraid of you, lest I have bestowed upon you labor in vain. You know how through the infirmity of the flesh I preached the gospel to you at first, and my temptation was in my flesh. You despised nor rejected, but received me as an angel of God, even as Christ Jesus. Where is then, you saints? For I bear your record. It is good to be zealous, affected always in the good thing, and not only when I'm present with you, my little children, he calls them. I desire to be present with you now, and change my voice, for I stand in doubt of you. Tell me, ye that desire to be under the law, what do you hear? Do you not hear the law? For it is written that Abraham had two sons, the one of the bondwoman and the other of the free woman. But who he? This gives us a bit of a context of how Paul is teaching these saints at the time here in Jerusalem. Before jumping in just yet, we're getting now to where he's referring to Abraham and his son. So I just want to keep going. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but he who was of the free woman by promise, which things are an allegory, for these things are two covenants, one of the Mount of Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Agar. For this Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answereth it to Jerusalem, which is now and is in bondage with her children. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. For it is written, Rejoice not, barren that beareth not, break forth, and cry thou that travel is not for the desolate, hath many more children than she, which hath an husband. Now, brethren, Isaac was the children of the promise, but as then he was born after the flesh persecuted him. He that was born after the flesh persecuted him, that he was born after the Spirit, even. So it is now, nevertheless, what say the Scripture? Canst thou cast out the bondwoman and her son? For the son of the bondwoman shall not be heir with the son of the free woman. So then, brothers, we are not children of the bondwoman, but children of the free. Now, I want to just ask you, what could this be saying about Jacob and Esau and how we're told that Jacob was loved and Esau was hated?